Hello and welcome to Discovering True Health, your weekly deep dive into health and wellness. Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we get started with today's show, please hit that subscribe button. It helps us out a lot, and you'll stay up to date on all our upcoming shows. You can also check out additional information on our website, Instagram, and Facebook. All those links are below. So a couple months back, we did a show on the issues around the IVF business here in the US. I interviewed a woman named Amanda Layden who shared her horror story that resulted in the loss of her uterus and any future fertility. She had personally gone through the conveyor belt process of IVF, and we spoke in length about the missing links in women's healthcare and how most mainstream doctors are not approaching women's healthcare and fertility in a root cause way. And if you missed that episode, I will post a link below in the notes. Definitely check it out. There's a lot of good information in there. So today on Discovering True Health, I have a doctor with me who is an expert in fertility and who approaches pregnancy and fertility in a holistic way using Eastern medicine principles. So we are going to learn a radical new way to get pregnant and healthy and avoid the expensive IVF business. So my guest today is Dr. Beck Hoehn, a Los Angeles-based board-certified acupuncturist and herbalist. She's a fertility expert and specializes in fertility acupuncture. And over the last 7 years, she's helped frustrated couples get pregnant, stay pregnant, and enjoy their dream family. And Dr. Hoehn has developed a method called the Positive Pregnancy Project that begins in January, where she will introduce women to Eastern medicine principles to not only support their fertility, but to enhance their soon-to-be family lives. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Christy. Thank you so much for having me on your show. This has been a long time in the making, and I'm really, really honored to be here.
I'm really excited to have this conversation. I'm so excited about the work that you're doing and to learn more, and everybody listening, so we can all learn more. I'd first love to start with hearing your journey. What was the catalyst that led you to become a fertility expert and create your program, the Positive Pregnancy Project? And what would you say are some of the missing pieces in standard women's healthcare in Western medicine?
So I started I was in the film business for 25 years and I was a camera assistant. So I was a minority in that field and industry. And every month I had the most painful periods. And every month I would just throw up, take some Advil, and go to work. And I realized at that time that I didn't realize that there was no other option besides going on the pill. So I was just really, really profoundly flabbergasted that that was my only option. And at the same time, I got injured at work. So I got in a physical accident at work, and an acupuncturist basically put me back together so that I could get back to being employed. But at the same time, and I didn't even know he was doing this at the time, he basically fixed my painful period. So I was so shocked and amazed by the transformation that I decided to go to school and study Chinese medicine. So through that journey, I also got an extra certification in fertility medicine. And I realized that there was a lack of information out there and the right type of access and information around women's health. So it was rife with misinformation and not a lot of opportunity to create education and empowerment for women. So even this was a couple of years ago, but the only option they had was going on the pill and not trying to seek a different type of medicine. So my goal is right now in healthcare has definitely shifted. At my brick and mortar in Los Angeles, I really, really strive to not just make babies, but to also make really, really happy, safe families that are healthy. But now I realized that I need to get the message out and help not just one person at a time. And so that's why I've created the Positive Pregnancy Project.
Beautiful. And thank you for that work. I mean, and like you said, it's so important because we don't talk about this as women enough with other women. And we don't hear about a lot of, or any other options out there. And a lot of us kind of suffer in silence through our, painful periods. And we don't like, I've never heard of acupuncture being used or helpful with painful periods myself to date.
Yeah, and it's really, really a wonderful time to be an acupuncturist, actually, because as we start to look beyond the confines of conventional medicine, people are starting to look outside of this current model that we have in the United States, and it's been really, really powerful. So they're asking the right questions. They're seeking other alternatives, and also the profession is really, really starting to specialize. So, for example, for those of you guys not based in New York or San Francisco or California or Los Angeles rather, there's people that specialize as acupuncturists in women's health now, and I think that and reproductive health, and I think that that's a really, really powerful distinction, because we know how to support reproductive health from a nutritional standpoint and what we call kind of more of a whole systems medicine.
Right. It's so important to approach it in a holistic way. And that was part of the story that this woman, Amanda Layden, was talking about, especially with the IVF industry. There was no questions about her diet or lifestyle or anything else except for the procedures they were doing. So are there any other parts in women's healthcare or missing pieces that you kind of specifically see that you think women listening should be aware of?
Well, I wanted to actually answer your IVF, that was a poor guest that you had on, was that a lot of times with IVF support and even IUIs, it's really, really powerful to go see a fertility acupuncturist first, right? So I always think in my office, because I work specifically with one reproductive endocrinologist, and he sends people to me first, and we get you really, really healthy and strong so that you're able to accept any of the medications that you're going to be doing, right? And also mitigate side effects. So, for example, ovarian hyperstimulation is very common among a certain demographic of people going through IVF. And we're able to make it so that those symptoms are not as aggressive as they might be. So I didn't mean to go down another rabbit hole there.
No, I love other rabbit
To say that that it's really, really powerful to have a fertility acupuncturist on your side when you're going through that journey as well, because they're going to catch things. They're spending a lot more time with you, and they're going to catch things that maybe your doctor didn't see, right? So that's very powerful.
Absolutely. And she mentioned that too. It was her acupuncturist who specialized in Chinese medicine, who is actually the one who helped her figure things out in the end. So, I mean,
This is amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. All right. So let's dive into learning how to get
Yeah.
pregnant and stay pregnant. And first step, as you were just mentioning, and I love how you phrase this, is prepare the place, which is so important and vital.
Yeah.
Can you share with us some important information on the best ways to prepare our bodies for conceiving a child, as well as the types of things that can affect our fertility factor?
Yeah, so this is this is a common coined phrase in fertility acupuncture. The medicine has a very, very rich history in gynecology, which a lot of people overlook because they only think of acupuncture as back pain. And so when we say prepare the palace, we're trying to make a really, really great, conducive place that's a non-hostile environment for the baby. So this is all kind of components of somebody's health, right? This is the physical place where the baby is going to be. So we're big in the Positive Pregnancy Project about talking about setting up a little altar or a place where you're going to come and visit every day, where this baby is going to show up in your home, right? So that's more of the esoteric cant about it. But then also to mitigate the stress response. So when you think about cortisol being upregulated, that is the stress hormone that we use for running from the lion on the veldt, right? So we don't want to make a baby or grow hair and skin and nails and digest food when we're trying to run from a lion. So what we try to do with Chinese medicine is we try to make it so that we don't have that cortisol constantly being pumping through the system, so that the embryo wants to implant. So remember that when cortisol is upregulated, it's an inflammatory thing, and it'll also inflame the uterine lining, right? So the embryo is not going to want to attach there, right? If you think about it. Yeah. So another piece about preparing the palace is creating a safe and healthy home for the baby. So we talked about the esoteric component of that, but one thing that a lot of people don't realize is their everyday exposure to chemicals. So I'm sure you've had a million people on the show talking about exposure to chemicals and how that's harmful. But in terms of the lens of fertility in Chinese medicine, we want to start thinking about phthalates and bisphenol. So those are two things that can be endocrine disruptors. So they can disrupt the estrogen signaling in the body. So if you think about it, you know, when you use laundry detergent, right, like completely filled with phthalates, that's near your genitals, that's near your reproductive organs, right? And so we see a lot of lower testosterone and poor sperm quality in males even that are affected by phthalates. So we start looking at kind of going through beauty products, going through plastics is a big endocrine disruptor, obviously, and a lot of those household chemicals. So we just really start taking stock of those things to see if we can create a couple of healthier changes.
Right. Yeah, and endocrine, we did a show on endocrine disruptors as well, and they're in so many more things than I was even aware of.
Yeah, completely. Like I always say, like I joke about it, but you know, that like neck scarf of a CVS receipt that you get that's like 20 yards long, that is covered in bisphenol. That's like a plastic, right? So, and like, I don't, you know, I had a couple of people that were like now wearing gloves in public and like not like it. So it's like, it doesn't need to be that extreme, but like, think about getting that receipt emailed, right? Like,
Right.
you know, don't go crazy, but like, I mean, just think about it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's crazy to me because I feel like whoever's in, I mean, it's just something that's not common knowledge because there are people that work in the business of creating these chemicals. And you got to think that most of them probably are unaware, or you got to hope that most of them are
I
unaware.
would hope that they're unaware. I'm not really sure if that's the case. I mean, there's been data around since, so a lot of the exposure and plastics got into our system after World War II. And so Dow actually did a marketing campaign called the Better Living Through Chemicals, which was really, really insane. And so, but our society gobbled it up. And we didn't know at that time that there was going to be so many health concerns later on from the rise of the age of plastics, right? But if you think about the toxic load that we bear on a cellular level from that time, generationally is really, really starting to affect us globally. And now it's really interesting. Infertility is considered a global public health crisis.
Right. Yes, I've heard this. Our fertility levels have dropped drastically.
Yeah, declined dramatically. And then in the sense of I don't know if you know about Shauna Swan's work. She's got a great book called The Countdown. And she kind of talks about this a lot, but even the World Health Organization has changed the diagnostic criteria for sperm health globally overall, just because this would be the current standard of sperm health wouldn't even be acceptable 10 or 20 years ago.
Fascinating. And what do you think some of
Yeah.
the main factors of the drop in fertility for men and women are? I mean, you
I
mentioned
mean,
them.
I think that there's a couple of things. One of the things that I noticed, I did a paper on this, but that culturally we're having children a lot later, right? So all of our sperm, well, all of our reproductive organs are exposed to these external environmental factors for a longer period of time, and so obviously our egg quality, our sperm quality, is going to be compromised considerably from an age standpoint. But then there is also um, our exposure to toxic chemicals has changed greatly too. It's really, really increased. And then the third thing, and this is more about the philosophical part of TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, is that we're really in a state of life out of balance, right? There's not a lot of moving and existing and eating with the seasons. We just run to the grocery store and get some corn on the cob encased in plastic. We have no sense of our place, which is what we call in Chinese medicine the space between heaven and earth, right? And so we don't really recognize our role as a society anymore in that space and what that looks like.
Beautiful. And I love that, the philosophical side of Chinese medicine. I mean, it goes so deep. And
it's really interesting. Yeah.
And they knew so much more than even our Western medicine, I feel like, does today about health and our bodies.
Yeah, and that is another again, so sorry, another rabbit hole. But when we think about when we think about balancing a woman's cycle, right? This is a different way of looking at it. Just a different lens for you is we're really trying to balance the yin time, which is the estrogenic follicular phase of your cycle, relative to the luteal yang progesterone phase, right? So we want to amplify the energetics of the yin and the yang time. And interestingly enough, that ovulation is that movement from the yin time in the body, where estrogen is proliferating and building this follicle and getting it ready to be ready for fertilization, right? So we have to really honor that movement from yin to yang, and then also obviously support the yang time as well. So that is what Chinese herbology does really, really well.
Right. So phase one, when working with you and preparing the palace, as you say. So eliminating stressors and toxins and really getting the inflammatory responses down in any way possible in the body and getting it ready for the body to conceive. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, and we've talked about, doing the show on the dark side of IVF, we learned all about that this process definitely does not take the holistic approach to pregnancy. And it's a very lucrative business that has been, unfortunately, a nightmare for so many women. So how would you say would be some good ways to get started getting pregnant if we would prefer to avoid this IVF industry?
Yeah. So, and then also, I don't want to demonize IVF. Like it really does provide a lot of people the opportunity. And I would say, like, just really quickly is like, get it together in terms of your questions and like know in advance what you're going to like, what that person's outcomes are, right? So there's SART, which is a lovely reporting agency where you can see what everybody's live birth rates are. I just don't want to go people do have positive experiences with IVF and IUI. But if you did want to give yourself a little bit of space first and try naturally, which is response to your question, there's a couple of things. And obviously, I'm pretty data rich, right? So I would just say learn how to track your cycle, not just on a phone app, right? So there was a study done in 2018 about the algorithm for phone apps and ovulation, and they studied 100 apps and only 21% were correct.
Wow.
Right. So that is one of the shifts that I'm really, really pushing for in our society and how we support reproductive health is like know before you go, right? So like know your own body and trust your own body and don't be wired into the matrix. Don't like just stare at a phone app and have sex every month and hope you're going to get pregnant. like learn how to use your body. So one of the North Stars that we kind of teach our students about is the cervical fluid, right? So that is knowing what that looks like throughout the month and how that relates to your fertile window is really, really important. I teach basal body temperature charting as part of my first when people first come in, and then I use a little bit more advanced femtech with my students that have been in the program for a little bit longer. But just knowing that fertile window and getting that data down is like the first piece, right? And the second piece for me is a bigger one. And this is more about like developing and cultivating resiliency as you move through getting pregnant and becoming a mom. So this is a very difficult time, and it's rife with disappointment, and it's a roller coaster. And knowing that you have that support, even through a therapist or an acupuncturist, but creating your own self-care in terms of affirmation cards or journaling or walking or some sort of really, really meditative, self-reflective kind of component every day is really important.
Right. Yes. Self-care. Absolutely. And it's important that you did mention the IVF industry isn't all bad, but I think what you also mentioned, and Amanda had mentioned this too, is the importance of going in with the right list of questions.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. You got to be your own quarterback, man.
Yeah. And is that something you prepare your clients, with, you kind of arm them with these questions?
Yeah. So at my brick and mortar, we have a handout. I mean, here's the thing is like, I'm talking to that reproductive endocrinologist like once a week, right? So I'll be like, this is the deal. So a lot of people that come in for IVF support, they're coming from that office, and like we case share and collaborate pretty intimately. So like we don't those people know what to expect. And like I always say, get like 2 or 3 opinions. Here's a handout based on what we've learned about like questions to ask. So we arm them pretty thoroughly with that information before they go in. But it's a shame, like also people don't know about using acupuncture as an IVF support modality, and it's incredibly effective. So what it does is it obviously regulates the cortisol response, which we've talked about previously, and it can help with better lymphatic and circulation, lymphatic exchange, circulation, so that you get more peripheral vascularization to the uterine lining and also the ovaries, right? So those are just really, really powerful things, and they can improve your chances at IVF, both the retrieval and the transfer considerably. And we're in such a great time in this profession because there's so many great RCTs on this now. So this is just a really, really lovely time to be able to help that many women.
Right. And I love this idea of combining the Eastern and Western, philosophy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really where it's at. Because I mean, both have some, great, the Western isn't terrible. We've got some great stuff, but, we can combine them both and make it even better.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say, in TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, we're really taught that, there's so many different spokes of the umbrella of TCM. So one of the spokes is acupuncture. One of them is our materia medica, which is the way that we build Chinese medical formulas. And then we also have food and nutrition as a therapy. And it's a really, really amazing notion when you're working with somebody to teach them about the seasons of their menstrual cycle, right? And so when you mentioned phase one is the wintry, most darkest yin time of your cycle. And at that time, we want to eat foods that support kidney yin. And we want to eat foods that are restorative and regenerative. So just kind of really moving through that framework throughout the cycle is so, so powerful.
Wow. So you're combining the philosophies around the diet with the cycle phases.
Yeah. Well, the seasons seasons of the year.
Wow. Yeah, I have actually had somebody on the show talk about that, and it's so important. And you're right, we don't do that. We just go and buy food. I think most people think about that.
Hey, just go and buy food, right?
Yeah.
It's just so funny because I grew up on an island in upstate New York, and like our version of vegetables were like potatoes, right? It's just really funny. Like even today, I think like in Los Angeles in California, our food is so accessible and it's so easy to just go buy whatever you want that's non-native, that's not local. So even on that base level, we talk about this a lot in the office, is like eating the food from your natural soil is really important, right? So just kind of getting down to those basics and that notion of, obviously, I want everybody that's listening to grow their own food, right? But we I'm a pretty extensive gardener, but I would just say, like, even something as simple as having a pot of herbs outside of your kitchen and starting to cook and starting to connect with the food that way, and getting those energetics in are really important.
Right. Absolutely. And even now that you can get those little hydroponic
Yeah.
setups, and you can have them in your apartment, and you can grow a decent amount if you're a single person with those, and they're not too pricey last time I checked. And I think it's fascinating that you mentioned that these apps out there are only about 20% correct, 'cause I didn't know that. And I'm sure most people don't. And so the other ways to techniques to figure out when or how to conceive faster or when we are fertile, you mentioned, would be temperature. What were some of the other ones?
Yeah, so the temperature is the main one, and that's what we use diagnostically as a report card in our brick and mortar for how we are going to approach your care from an herbal perspective as you move through your cycle. So basically, it shows us our progress. It allows you to be empowered so that you can hone in on your fertile window with a little bit more alacrity. And the temperatures are going to be different based on the time of the month, right? So during the yin or follicular phase, the temperatures are historically a little lower. And then there's a definitive thermal shift into the yang or progesterone phase of your cycle. So based on what that pattern looks like when we put that on a chart, we have Chinese medicine patterns that kind of show us how to treat you properly, right? So, for example, if somebody has a sawtooth profile in the follicular phase, which means that their temperature is going up and down, up and down, up and down, obviously, that's what we call liver qi stagnation, right? So that's a Chinese medical pattern that we need to treat. And that means that our nervous system is over-regulating on top of our digestive health or our spleen. So liver overacting on spleen is generally one of the reasons that we would have liver qi stagnation. So we would work on regulating the nervous system as much as we could.
Fascinating. Oh, this is all so incredible. Now, for women who have become successfully pregnant, you've also created a 3-part process to achieve a positive pregnancy. So how or what are some of the ways we can enjoy a safe and healthy pregnancy?
Well, the Positive Pregnancy Project is more about trying to conceive and setting yourself up for success that way. In terms of once you do conceive, generally speaking, we recommend going to an acupuncturist once a week through the first trimester. And then that acupuncturist will really, really help you round the corner in terms of morning sickness and back pain and constipation and all of the things that come with that piece. And then in office, we do labor preparation. So about 2 to 3 weeks before the baby is going to be is due, we teach you a couple of acupressure points, which is are really, really important. And what they can do is mitigate some of the challenges of labor, and then work on opening those meridians so that the baby has a easier passage into being born.
Wow. This is incredible.
Yeah.
No idea. I mean, I'm sure most people don't know how incredible acupuncture is for pregnancy, for getting pregnant, staying pregnant, and going through the process of pregnancy.
It's amazing. It's really the meridian system is like waking up the body to a different way of healing, right? So that is it's just really, really powerful. And it doesn't, honestly, it's really important to know that it doesn't take much, right? So even if you went to an I don't even know how to say this, somebody that just practices acupressure or learned some of those points, you can work on painful periods, you can work on your digestive health, you can work on relaxation. And it's just really, really great to know that this system is out there for people, right?
Absolutely. And for those that want to contact you and learn more about the work you are doing, how can they do so? And can you also share with us what types of programs you have available, and a little more about your upcoming program that you're starting in January, as well as if you have any other great resources you can check out.
So many questions.
How many questions?
Yeah, so you guys can always find me online. So I have 2 Instagram accounts. Mighty River Wellness is our brick and mortar in Los Angeles, and we also have a website, Mighty River Wellness. So you can definitely check me out there. And then Achieve Fertility Courses is my course series, and that is Achieve Fertility Courses is the handle. And specifically, I'm very, very excited. We're going to be opening up the cohort probably at the end of December. So we're going to have our first group of people going through the online course, which is the Positive Pregnancy Project. So that is just how to make a really, really great family and become a mom.
Beautiful. That's going to be so exciting, and I appreciate all your work with that. And I will post links below so anybody can look you up and contact you. Before we wrap up the show, do you have any final words to share with women out there who are having a difficult time getting pregnant?
Yeah, I would say 2 things. First of all, trust the timing of your life would be the first thing, is just put your hand on your heart and say that. And then I also feel that every person that wants to be a mom deserves that chance. And I really, really hope that I get to see that happen for you. So all the best.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your incredible information around fertility and pregnancy and TCM. And thank you as well for the important work you're doing with thinking outside the Western medicine box to get to help women get pregnant and stay pregnant.
I wish all of your listeners all the best. Thanks for the honor of being on your show. I really appreciate it.
Remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about your body, the better you're able to stay healthy and prevent disease. And a reminder, I am not your doctor. Please don't take this as medical advice. If you have specific questions about your healthcare, feel free to reach out to your practitioner. And if you like this video, please like and share with others. This information could really help someone you may know. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button below to be sure you don't miss out on our future shows. And I will see you all next Wednesday on the next episode of Discovering True Health.